was late in the fall of 2007, and just 7 weeks earlier, my friends and I had made our first batch of sauerkraut. We were excited. We had gone to the farmer's market and bought the best organic cabbage. Bringing it home, we chopped it up into fine little shreds. We sprinkled high-quality salt on it. We massaged it. When it was ready, we put it in the fermenting pot. We packed it down. We put the lid on, and away it went into my friend's basement. And there it sat. And here we were, 7 weeks later, ready, excited to check it out. Whoa! Oh my gosh, it was disgusting. Huge billows of, hairy mold, every different color, blacks and whites and blues. This isn't supposed to what was happening. That was disgusting. Every once in a while, a ferment goes wrong. You can create what I call a friendly ferment. One of the most commonly asked questions I get is, how do I create a good ferment to get the good bacteria, those probiotics, and not the nasty ones? That example was from back way in the early days when I just started fermenting with some friends. And I know a lot more now, and I can help you create a wonderful, friendly ferment with the good bacteria and no bad bacteria. There are 3 keys to create a friendly ferment, to be able to create the right environment for those good bacteria to grow. The 3 keys are, that I like to call, here are 2 A's. First thing you need is what Sandor Katz, king of fermentation, what he calls a 2% brine solution, right? So you need enough salt and enough salinity that it's favorable for the good bacteria. Salt has always been used as a preservative. Rubbing down meats with salt and different vegetables preserves them, and it keeps away the bad bacteria. So we need a 2% solution in order to create a good, healthy, favorable environment for those good bacteria to grow and to keep away the bad. So 2%, well, if you're making pickles, if you're making sauerkraut, what does that look like? 2% brine looks anywhere from 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt per liter of water. So let's say you're making pickles. You'd put, say, I like to go kind of middle path, 2 tablespoons of really good high quality salt into 1 liter of water. Then I'll put my vegetables into that, and that will pickle it. In the case of sauerkraut, per 5 to 7 pounds, again, depending on the size of cabbage, if it's a summer cabbage or a winter cabbage, you're going to have your cabbage, let's say roughly you got 5 to 7 pounds. You're going to do 2 tablespoons of salt per 5 to 7 pounds. Doesn't need to be exact. This is kind of an average. Some of you are going to like it more on the salty side, keep it on the safe side. Some of you are going to want a little bit less. So this is kind of an average. You don't need to measure specifically down, what is the percentage. Use this as a guideline. Since those early days, I don't think I've ever measured. Once you get a feel for it of how much salt is required, but use that. Is your 2% or 2 tablespoons, either per liter for pickles or per 5 to 7 pounds for your sauerkraut. Now the next condition to create the right environment for the healthy bacteria to grow and to keep away the bad is you want an anaerobic environment. Anaerobic means without oxygen. So you create your solution. If we're talking about pickles, you're going to have your salt brine that you add the vegetables to, and deep within that liquid, if everything's still submerged and underneath the brine and not up and exposed to the air, you're going to have a good ferment, right? So it's an anaerobic environment. Same with that sauerkraut. As we pack it into our fermenting pot or we pack it into our jar, we want to press it down. We want that liquid, that brine, to come up and come to the surface and have all your vegetable matter underneath the brine. In that brine, it's an anaerobic environment without oxygen. Now, you might notice, depending on your system, if there is something sticking out through the liquid, or it's open to the air, it's not a closed, sealed system like a fermenting pot, or it doesn't have an airlock on it and it's exposed to the air, you might get a little bit of surface mold. That's because it's exposed to the air and to oxygen. So that's where, the bad bacteria, the bad yeast, the fungus can grow only on the surface. Everything else underneath in that brine, in that anaerobic environment, it's going to be good. All right, so the next condition, the next third key to a good, healthy, friendly ferment is an acidic environment. If you have these two, this will take care of itself, right? So as those bacteria begin to grow, to begin to thrive, one of their byproducts of their metabolism are acids, right? Like lactic acid is one of them. So this term lactobacillus acidophilus, acid phelos, it's acid-loving bacteria, and the lactobacillus refers to it, it's a lactic acid-producing bacteria. And this acidic environment is favorable to good bacteria. So you might start off with saline solution. You put your vegetables in that anaerobic environment, but as the bacteria begin to grow, there's a succession of the different types of bacteria that continually produce acids as a byproduct of their metabolism, and it begins to drop the pH of your pickles, your sauerkraut, right? That name, soured kraut, soured vegetables. So we need that acidic environment. That's what's favorable to good bacteria, to probiotics, to making a friendly ferment. Now, back to this. What happened in 2007 where it all went wrong? Well, I can't remember. We certainly didn't know all the specific measurements of whether we had enough salt. So we salted it, whether it was more or enough, or not, doesn't matter. We put it into the pot, we packed it down. We were creating that anaerobic environment. We had a fermenting pot where it had this well and it could create a seal. We filled it up. But what happened is over the days, over the weeks, that seal, it evaporated. So essentially it was open to the air. Even though the lid was on, there was an evaporation that was going on. So our brine started here and all our wonderful kraut was below it, but as the brine began to evaporate, it left the cabbage exposed to the air. And it being exposed to the air in an aerobic environment, that's when the bad bacteria grew. That's when they began to thrive. And weeks later, we opened it up, and it was a horrible, just stinking mess. So into the compost it went, one kind of dump after another. But what was interesting, as we were digging through it, as we got near the bottom, the color was changing. The smell had changed. It actually wasn't that bad. I mean, it still took, you try some first. I think we both had some at the same time. And, we lived, we survived. So on that top, where it had been exposed to the oxygen, that was full of mold, back bacteria. Into the compost it went. But underneath, where it was still that acidic, anaerobic environment, it was still perfectly good. Now, I don't recommend that. I mean, that was an extreme case. Lots of mold, lots of bad bacteria. Underneath, sure, for the most part, it was good. We ate it. We didn't eat the whole thing, but we definitely took out a jar or two and enjoyed it. Flavor was kind of off. Probably you get a batch that bad, you just toss it. If it's really nasty and moldy, if it's just a little bit of surface mold, a little bit of what we call cam yeast, just right on the surface, little white kind of surface layer, or tiny little bit of fuzz on top, it's going to be surface. You can skim that off, and everything that's in that salt brine, in an anaerobic and acidic environment, that's where the good bacteria are, and it's going to be good for you. So have no fear. Sandor Katz, again, one of my mentors in fermentation, written a number of books. We hosted him here in Calgary one time, and he gave us the statistic that no one, according to the FDA or the USDA, whoever it was down there, there's never been a case of food poisoning from lacto-fermented vegetables, meaning your pickles, your sauerkraut, things that you can create at home. So have fun, be inspired. You can create a good, healthy, friendly ferment full of probiotics that will nourish your microbiome. So enjoy.